Think back to your history class. Thick textbooks, endless dates, and battles. But what if the stories that really matter, the shocking, hidden truths, were never in those books? History isn't always written by the victors. Sometimes it's scrubbed clean, edited to hide the dark parts. Today, we're uncovering 4 stories that were buried, ignored, or erased. Events that change everything you thought you knew. You probably learned about the racial tensions of the early 20th century. You read about Jim Crow laws and the struggles of African Americans, but it was likely a generalized story of hardship, a story that, for the most part, glosses over the ugliest details. But what if I told you that one of the worst acts of racial violence in American history wasn't a riot, but a full-blown military-style assault on a symbol of black success? An attack that was then deliberately wiped from the history books for almost 100 years. This is the story of the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre. In Tulsa, Oklahoma, the Greenwood District was so prosperous with its own banks, theaters, and luxury shops that it was nationally known as Black Wall Street. It was a beacon of black self-sufficiency and economic power. And then it was burned to the ground. It all started on May 31st, 1921, when a young black man was accused of assaulting a white woman. A mob of white citizens, armed and deputized by city officials, swarmed Greenwood. For 18 hours, they looted and burned homes and businesses. There were even reports of private planes dropping firebombs, turning the vibrant neighborhood into a war zone. When it was over, 35 city blocks were nothing but ash. Over 1,200 homes were destroyed, and 10,000 people were left homeless. While the official death toll at the time was a mere 36, historians now estimate as many as 300 people were murdered. And after the massacre? Silence. News reports were buried. Official records vanished. For decades, survivors were too terrified to even speak its name. This wasn't a riot. It was the targeted annihilation of black prosperity. And forgetting it wasn't an accident. It was a calculated cover-up that shows us racial violence wasn't just systemic, but a brutal, direct assault on anyone who dared to succeed. Most people think World War II began when Germany attacked France, but the reality is much more complex. The real spark happened in September 1939, when Germany and the Soviet Union jointly invaded Poland. Before the invasion, Germany had expanded its territory using staged referendums in German-majority regions. Poland refused to accept these claims, standing firm against aggression. At the same time, Germany and the Soviet Union had secretly signed the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact, a non-aggression treaty that included a secret protocol to divide Eastern Europe into spheres of influence. This allowed the Soviet Union to join the invasion of Poland from the east, while Germany attacked from the west. Together, they quickly overwhelmed Polish defenses, splitting the country between them. Poland had alliances and support promises from France and Britain. However, when Germany and the Soviet Union invaded, Poland was left largely on its own. Cities were bombed, armies encircled, and civilians were trapped in the chaos. After Poland fell, France and Britain declared war on Germany, marking the official start of the global conflict. Other countries also watched closely. Nations that had treaties or political ties, like Italy, Japan, and the smaller European states, were calculating their positions, some eventually joining the Axis or Allied powers, while others tried to remain neutral. Textbooks often simplify this story. Germany started the war. The truth? It was a combination of political manipulation, secret agreements, broken promises, and coordinated invasions that plunged the world into war. Poland's courage, empty guarantees, and the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact were central to how the conflict spread so quickly. World War II is the good war, right? A clear-cut story of good versus evil, where a unified America rose up to defend freedom. The home front is remembered as a place of patriotic unity and sacrifice. But that simple story hides an ugly truth about the racism rotting the core of the American military, even as it fought for liberty overseas. That truth exploded, literally, on July 17, 1944, at Port Chicago, California. This naval base was where African-American sailors were exclusively assigned the back-breaking, incredibly dangerous job of loading ammunition onto ships. They were given no real training, and their white officers pushed them into reckless competitions to see who could load the fastest. On that July night, 2 ships packed with thousands of tons of explosives detonated. The blast was so huge it registered as an earthquake, instantly killing 320 men. 202 of them were the black sailors tasked with loading the bombs. It was the single deadliest event on the home front during the entire war. In the aftermath, the surviving white officers were given leave. The surviving black sailors were not. Instead, they were ordered to clean up the body parts of their friends. Weeks later, they were ordered to go back to loading ammunition in the exact same unsafe conditions. Terrified, 258 of them refused what they saw as a suicide mission. The Navy's response? They charged 50 of them with mutiny, a crime punishable by death. All 50 men, known as the Port Chicago 50, were found guilty. The trial blew the lid off the military's blatant racism. It's a story that gets left out because it complicates the heroic myth of a perfectly unified America fighting the good war, revealing that for many, the fight for freedom was happening right here at home. When we talk about violence in schools, the conversation always seems to start with modern tragedies like Columbine, as if this is a uniquely new problem. But what if I told you the deadliest school massacre in American history happened in 1927, and was then almost completely erased from our collective memory? This is the story of the Bath School disaster. On the morning of May 18th in Bath Township, Michigan, a local farmer and school board treasurer named Andrew Kehoe decided to get revenge over a property tax he hated. For months, he had been secretly packing the basement of the new school with hundreds of pounds of dynamite. At around 8:45 a.m., he triggered the first explosion. The blast tore through the north wing of the school, killing 38 people, most of them children between the ages of 7 and 12. As frantic parents and first responders rushed to pull survivors from the rubble, Kehoe drove up in his truck, which he had loaded with more dynamite and shrapnel. He then blew himself up, killing the school superintendent and several others in one final horrific act. The final death toll was 45 people, including 38 kids. It is still the deadliest act of violence at a school in U.S. history. Investigators later discovered another 500 pounds of explosives under the school's other wing that had failed to detonate. He meant to kill everyone. The story made national news, but was quickly overshadowed by Charles Lindbergh's flight across the Atlantic a few days later. Eventually, it just faded away. It's a chilling reminder that sometimes the darkest parts of our history aren't actively censored. They're just forgotten. The Tulsa Massacre, the Port Chicago 50, and the Bath School bombing. Stories, all connected by one thing. They're the chapters that were left out of the book. They tell us uncomfortable truths about our world, about racism, greed, injustice, and forgotten horrors. History is the story we tell ourselves about ourselves. But when you start pulling out key pages, the story doesn't just become incomplete, it becomes alive. The most important lessons are usually hidden in the chapters they never wanted you to read. If this video opened your eyes, hit that like button and subscribe for more hidden history. And tell us in the comments, what forbidden story should we dig into next? Question everything. Never stop seeking the truth.